This is magic, in essence. The people who so those who understand it previous to the Enlightenment, those who explored it, the basis of Western magic and esotericism, one branch of it is within the notion of the sympathy of all things, because it means that you can control things at a distance via ritual. Again, we're getting real deep here, and then it's hard to skirt over these things. But what I'm trying to get at, to bring it back to synchronicity, is that he sees the world we live in, where we talk about and think about causality. He sees that as actually a fairly recent thing, coming from maybe the 1700s, and he sees in the Eastern mindset a different viewpoint, which relates somewhat to an older Western mindset, that is the sympathy of all things.
So is this kind of something that is, in a way, contradicting the scientific revolution? Not per se contradicting, but I mean, like, we're contrasting two perspectives on the world, essentially. And I think that's kind of what I'm getting at when I say, like, this hyper rational Western view is, so there was this scientific revolution, and it was a revolution about how we viewed everything, because now we were able to give causality, right? Which was, now we can see things. We have microscopes. We can see that, oh, you don't get sick because you were cursed. You get sick because you ingested a virus or something like this. And so I think that's probably where the idea of causality becomes so strong from, because now you're suddenly able to set up that timeline and prove when, the control of the experiment that says, let's see if this thing causes this thing, by isolating things and all of that. And not to say that, no science or something, but I think there's something lost in viewing the scientific revolution and the understanding of the world that came out of that as the only thing, the one truth. Because even that process, it's a process, it's a tool, it's another method of seeing and understanding, right? And so what we're talking about now that Jung touches on is, what was there before? What are the other ways of understanding? And is it flawed to think that just because those other ways were flawed too and make mistakes, that they are inherently 100% useless and wrong? And again, this comes back to the idea of, is religion inherently 100% useless and wrong just because science and that perspective that comes out of science shows that, well, a lot of the things that were believed through religion are disproven. But yet, we see that there are other elements to it that couldn't really easily be put under a microscope or disproven with carbon dating or something like that, that still had important functions, like the hope, belief, a system of values for acting. Those aren't things that easily come to view through the scientific method, So I think that's what's important to understand when we talk about these things, is that, again, I think maybe it's useful also to bring this down to a microcosmic example, which is, if you have two ideas, it's not that so this idea is more useful to me, so the other one is completely useless, I throw it away, get rid of it, and it's disgusting to even talk or look at. Maybe you can look at both of the ideas and being able to examine them both, even if you rely on another one more, still adds value to you as a person and the way that you understand things. That's why I like these ideas, because even though synchronicity isn't something that we can talk about, it's been proven with science, I think it still provides value to consider.
I agree with you. I think it's interesting. I think that it is valuable. I think that something he writes in this book is, I have to remind myself, the last witch in Europe was burned the year my grandfather was born. Now, Now,
So strange.
so, and, I would remind people that it was in the late 18th century, maybe, when doctors realized they should wash their hands before they perform surgery. So I'm not here to sell you crystals or downplay the scientific revolution or logic or reason or anything like that. I agree with you. Those are very useful tools and can even act as a kind of, um, people always take the scientific viewpoint and they pretend like it's the viewpoint of a kind of almost stoic or the tough viewpoint to have. I'm very reasonable,
Mm-hmm.
but what the trick is, what people often do with it is they use it just as much as a narcotic as other people use crystal therapy. They'll play
Yeah.
that trick on themselves, and I understand why people do it, and I'm not criticizing
It
them.
provides a sense of stability also, which is the same thing, I think, in a way. I think so. Here's that intention, right? That importance of like, okay, intellect is a tool. A tool can be used with the wrong intention. So science is great and extremely useful in the scientific process, and that kind of rational outlook is obviously incredibly useful. But if it becomes a shield or something you kind of use to hide yourself and to immediately fight off anything that might shake up the fact that even science can't answer everything just yet, then perhaps you're not even using science in the way that it's meant to be used, you know? And I think this touches a little bit on what has culturally come out now, which is this ethos of believe science. Where it's become this cultural battlefield, whether you believe science or you're anti science. And you can kind of see that really shows you that there is a way to even take something that's supposed to be dry and apathetic and neutral and rational and turn it into its own kind of belief system.